Welcome to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this 20th day of June. A lot of stuff in the news today. I didn't get to everything. A little bit of I told you so with the Bob Huggins. Now, somewhat of a legendary coach. You know, he's the third winningest coach of all time. He has resigned as West Virginia's coach. Plus, I'm going to talk about, obviously, Bradley Beal. There's something fishy about this thing. Could be me just overthinking the situation, but I'll talk about that. I'll break that trade down. Draymond Green has opted out. I'll tell you the truth about the Warriors, and also an update on Stephon Diggs' Buffalo Bills. I'll talk a little bit about the AFC East and more. Got a few other announcements as we go. But first, we'll take our first and only break, and we'll hit the ground running here on Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program. All righty then, and also I want to announce that tomorrow, 30 minutes into the program, John Restano will be on from Spitball and Sports. You know, John's a big basketball guy. He lives up there in the Niagara Falls, Buffalo area. Going to ask him about this story that's brewing out up there with Stephon Diggs. There was another update on that. I'll play that a little bit later. But first, let's look at the Washington side of things of this trade between Bradley Beal for going from Washington to the Phoenix Suns. So I did a little research on the Wizards because this seems fishy. It seems almost too one-sided. And I've got a few theories, and we'll talk about it. You know, this team, the Wizards, have had 5 general managers in 20 years. One of them being Michael Jordan, a guy who, you know, legendary player. We had no management experience. That was a horrible hire. Looking back on it, the Wizards have had 9 coaches since 2000. That is practically one every other year. Okay, and no wonder why they gave a player like Bradley Beal. I like Bradley Beal, but I don't like him enough to give him a no trade clause. They gave him a no trade clause. You know, and I was watching somebody, Corey, on Twitter, and I forgot who. It may have been Jason Whitlock. But he's like LeBron in his prime. And I'll add a few other players. He mentioned guys like LeBron and Steph. I'll add players like LeBron in his prime, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, nowadays Giannis, of course, Joker. Those players should get no trade clauses, not Bradley Beal. You know, so he gets this no trade clause, and he's traded to the Phoenix Suns for Chris Paul, a guy who last week I reported, of course, because it was a guy from TNT that said he's going to get released. So they trade for Chris Paul, who is going to get bought out, and he's moved to the Clippers in this difficult 3-team trade. Landry Shamet, a career 9 points, 2 assists guy, and one other player I never heard of, and 2 second-round and a couple second-round picks. You know, so that is a very fishy trade here. John Wall, that era never really panned out, even when healthy, never really had an excellent team around him. They didn't make it to the playoffs. This is Washington's side of it. They made the playoffs in 2014 with Bill and John Wall and Martin Gortat, Pickles, you remember him? And, I just wonder if is there something to this Bill trade that we don't know? Is that the best deal that they could get? He got the super max. Yeah, that's right, Corey. So is it because of the super max? Because is there something with his injury history? Bradley Beal, and I like Bradley Beal, 50% shooter. But you got to look at it as a valid question. It seems like a robbery from the side of Phoenix. Beal had played over 60 games in 5 years. Bradley Beal hasn't played over 60 games in 5 years. He's played 90 games in the last 2 years, I tell you. Was he being purposely shut down, or does he have an injury problem? Why wasn't Milwaukee more involved? Why wasn't the Heat more involved? You just wonder about that. And like, Corey says, it's that super max. But I'll say this. You can get out of a big contract in the NBA. It's hard. But Oklahoma City, Sam Presti, he proved that to me. I don't care how old the player is. I don't care how big of a contract it is. When Sam Presti moved Westbrook's contract when it was a supermax, when they moved Chris Paul's contract when he was way past his prime, I thought to myself, okay, Sam Presti can get out of anything. But you just wondered, is it just that contract, or are there some hidden, or just some kind of hidden injury problem where everybody else is like, nah, man, we're good on Bill. Because it seemed like the Heat was pretty quick to say, nah, we're good. So that is that is my suspicion. That's where I'm suspicious. Now, say I was just being paranoid. Say it was just a bad team. Say this was low management. Just say that was it. And he is a 50% guy. He's one of the best, spot up guys out there. 20-some points a game, not worth a super max. But hey, I just mentioned this team's had 9 coaches since 2000 and 5 general managers. One of them being Michael Jordan. I mean, that's a great name and all, but hey, MJ didn't have any managerial experience, man. And that's another point. The NBA is too caught up into former players. I mean, I'm going to talk a little bit later about the Draymond Green situation. Mike Dunleavy, whose dad coached in the league, who was a former player, been a scout with Golden State for 5 years. He's now the general manager of the Golden State Warriors. So I'm not sure about that. That's part of my beef with the NBA. But going back, that being said, also DeAndre Ayton is rumored to be part of a future trade to help out with depth issues that this team may have. But I'll say this, I mentioned Frank Vogel and how good he was with Roy Hibbert and the big man. Frank Vogel and how excellent Anthony Davis played from a defensive perspective and, of course, offensive perspective, and has stayed with him. He's playing well right now when he's healthy with Frank Vogel when they won in the bubble there a few years ago. But, you think about the play of Roy Hibbert and with that Pacer team, with Hibbert and Paul George, Lance Stevenson, they pushed Miami hard. they were a more mature Paul George from potentially upsetting that Miami Heat team that eventually went on to win the championship a couple of years. But, I just think that you look at this team and you look at the depth chart now, you have Bill would be a shooting guard. They've already got, this is according to ESPN's depth chart here. So you'll have Booker as a point. Booker did a good job getting to the rim, played really well, even though they did get put out in 6 games to the champion Denver Nuggets. And then you think about Kevin Durant's play with Booker without Chris Paul, who I kind of expected that to happen, and a DeAndre Ayton who eventually got hurt and eventually ended their run there. But my thing is, Ayton is a better player than people want to give him credit for. And, redefining the term rim protector. Okay. Explaining, I don't say redefining, but, watching these playoffs closely. And when a team's running down there and they're trying to score and you have the opposition shooting fadeaways, shooting away from the basket on a non-fast break type of play where you're in half-court settings in the playoffs, you've got an advantage. You have an advantage. You don't have to be an all-world scorer. We've seen that before. Well, you don't have to have an all-world scorer there to affect the game. We saw that with Joker when he's not passing, just on the defensive side. For him playing the middle of the court, playing the paint, making the opposite. And I've seen this with Shaq. Shaq did not have a jumper. They had a little baby hook, and he had the big slam. But defensively, teams had to play away from Shaq. They had to back away. They had to take a little bit of – you've rarely got any layups right at Shaq, dunks right at Shaq. You did sometimes, but it's rare. And you also rarely had other than a fast break against him. Ayton can be used the same way. Every game I've watched him play, he played well. It's not the prettiest player in the world. Rebounds and putbacks. Durant don't want to play inside too. Durant will be 35 next year. Okay? Durant wants to stay out there on the wing and shoot jumpers, and that's fine. That's fine for Durant. Durant needs to conserve his energy as much as possible, especially with his age. So if you put this team together and forget everything I just said, and that's speculation, though, about Bradley Beal and this potential injury problem in a bag of goods for a max player guy who's hasn't played over 60 games. I mean, it's all about a championship. They've got a very aggressive owner. He's a young guy, came across a lot of money, bought the team. Soon as it went finalized, went out aggressively, and that's all fine and dandy. I like Booker. I like a guy like Bill if he's healthy. And then you put a Kevin Durant there with an Ayton who is much more valuable if used right. He doesn't have to get 18 to 20 points. He'd get 8 points in effect. 8 points and 14 to 16 rebounds and 4 or 5 block shots, and he's money to go. You can run some high pick and roll between him and Booker, who's getting to the rim more. And that was my big knock on Booker back in the day, was he was taking way too many jumpers. And I know he's a very streaky player, but everything to me would run through Booker and Ayton. Then you have Durant on one side, and you have a Bradley Beal on the other side. You got yourself a hard team to beat, man. This team did push Denver to 6 games, and then when Ayton went out, they went out. So Ayton is a much better player. I hope that Phoenix does not move Ayton. There's some rumors that maybe they move him for a Miles Turner and get a whole bunch of and just totally play small ball. you need depth at that big man position. You still need rim protection. He doesn't have to be a guy that hit an 18-foot jump shot. You've got shooters. I disagree with people who say that otherwise, just by simply watching the game, So FanDuel has updated their odds, championship odds for next year. All right. And I'm trying to find it. I've got so many screenshots, folks. But yeah, here's Bill's numbers here. So Bill will be paid $46 million this year, $50 million next year at 31, 53 at 32, and then at 33, he'll have a player option for $57 million, and he's probably going to use that. And that's in 26 and 27. So here's the updated odds. Denver's still the favorite, followed by Boston, followed by Milwaukee with their ancient team, with the 35-year-old, 36-year-old Brook Lopez as they're big on the inside. And then the Phoenix Suns, they will be fourth. I would put Phoenix, if Bill's healthy and they keep Ayton, and nobody else ahead of them makes any grand moves, and I don't expect that, Court. If nobody else makes any really big adjustments, I could put Phoenix second. Above Boston and Milwaukee. Now, that being said, we shall see. Is Bradley Beal's injury more than beats the eye when you add the max contract? That's something to be thought about. That is food for thought. But either way, if it works out, even with the max contract, it's a steal. It's a steal because Washington didn't get anything. Washington is in air quote full. And I noticed Cal Kuzma, he's like, screw this, I'm getting out of here. Report Miami didn't even want to pay the luxury tax for Bradley Beal's contract. You just wondering if it's more to it than that. One would think. Okay. Yeah, breaking the Washington Wizards are finalized. I'm trying to see if I had a note on. Yeah, Cal Kuzma has declined player option to become a free agent. Yeah, I just wonder what the deal is up there in D.C. How come they can't get a good team? You'd think it'd be a basketball heaven up there in the D.C. area, in my opinion. Okay, other big news. Yeah, Chad. So Chad says Miami Heat wants Lillard, and that's what I said. Maybe you watch the Sports Scope. Lillard would be a better fit for the Miami Heat, if you ask me. Legal tampering in the NBA, where we're going to hear about moves being made. That today's the 20th. You have the draft on tomorrow. No, Thursday. I want today to be Wednesday. You have the draft will be on Thursday, and then you'll have on June the 30th. And I want to say on the 4th they can actually sign, but on June the 30th, Chad, teams can negotiate with their. We'll hear legal tampering with players. We're going to hear like who's going where and when and why. So that'll be an interesting. So we're talking 10 days from now. Can't wait. All right, now staying in the league here, Draymond Green. Draymond Green opted out. Another guy who will be 34 next year. Opted out his $27.6 million player option. That would have been really good if he would have just kept that player option. If you look at some of the players that are getting paid a lot of money now, Green's pretty close to a triple-double average kind of player. I was looking at some of his stats. He is a good player, but he's an aging player. So he wants. This is what was reported last year, and I'm pretty sure he hasn't changed his mind. He wants a max extension, okay? A max 4-year extension. I looked that up. That is 120% of what he's making now So if you do that, do the math on that. He wants about $50 million a year, just for the podcast audience. That's in case one doesn't discharge, shooting yourself in the head with two guns. But anyways, and again, like I was mentioning earlier, Mike Dunleavy, the 42-year-old new general manager, is taking over for Bob Meyer. I mean, he's got a pretty easy move to make, like I've mentioned before with Draymond Green. Dylan Brooks, very much like a Draymond Green. 1 and 2 in most technicals, about the same height. Don't lie, mixing it up. Green, a little bit better of a passer, but he's going to be 34. Numbers are pretty mirror image. But you put Dylan Brooks there, be a free agent here in a week or so, here in the next 10 days. Let Draymond walk. Let him go seek that 4-year deal. And there's somebody may pay him. The way this league is set up, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody didn't pay him that kind of money. But this guy's going to be 34. His minutes, injuries, all that's going to be coming up, He's a smart player, but he's not worth that. He's a guy you're going to have to start watching his minutes. He is an enforcer. You still need one. He's a really good passer, and he does have some leadership skills, but he's also been a guy who punched out a teammate. He's also been a guy who ran off Kevin Durant, who undermined his coach publicly. But you heard what Steve Kerr said. Hey, we need to run it back with him. But it's just not the right move if I'm the general manager of the Golden State Warriors due to his age. Okay? This team looked like their tongues were hanging down. In the end of that Sacramento series, they're very fortunate to have gotten past the Kings there, and they could not win on the road in the regular season. They thought they could mail it in and make it as a 6 seed. Of course, I correctly predicted that the Lakers would put them out in 6. I thought the Kings would beat the Kings in 6 because Kings didn't have enough experience in the playoffs. Kings actually pushed them to 7 games and took the life out of them. So if I'm Bob Myers, which I don't know why Myers, I guess the stress of it, but if I'm Mike Dunleavy, president of operations, even Steve Kerr, we have a sit down with him. Man, we appreciate everything you've done, but this is a business. They've paid him a lot of money already. It's time to move on from Draymond Green. He'll be 34 next year. He's not getting any younger. Go out and sign Dylan Brooks. Use that cap space to sign a guy 7 years younger. Same thing with Klay Thompson, who also wants a big contract. He's got 1 year left on his contract. It's $40+ million. Go out and trade him to whoever you can and get former Laker Kyle Kuzma, who I just mentioned, opted out of his 21 point a game. Kyle, another younger player, bring him on with him, Steph, and he's a bigger player. It's another thing. This team's got to get bigger. The whole small ball thing's great when you're energetic and you're running fast and everything's everything. But the truth of the matter is I'd break 2 of the 3 up. You may have another year or 2 left with Curry. Curry you can get around his defensive efficiencies. If you bring some bulky guys in there, Brooks will play defense. Guzman will play defense. Bring in 2 guys like that. Maybe get another low-end big to sub with Looney. And of course, you still got Wiggins there and pull. You can make that happen. That's a competitive team. If I'm Golden State, all right. And then, like I said, Klay and Draymond, they're number 4, number 5, possibly number 6 or 7 on a team, depending on what team they go to. Depth chart. They do bring a championship, mentality to a team. But both of them are past their prime. You paid them a lot of money already. But if you keep this team and air quote run it back and add another piece or 2 there with size, this team they're done. You're not going to be competitive. You're looking in the rearview mirror, and you're not looking in the windshield, in my opinion. And we cannot forget what Draymond has done. You know, you got to take the good with the bad, but you can't totally ignore the bad. He was also a guy who got he got too many techs in the playoffs, or I think the regular season or whatever that goes over the playoffs. Either way, due to his techs, remember he was suspended in Game 5 in 2016, and that hurt the the Warriors winning that championship, where LeBron and the Cavaliers ended up coming back from that 3-1 deficit to go ahead and win the series. So sometimes you got to be more assertive, man, and let these guys know that it's not all about them, that it's about the team. And that goes with my issue with the NBA as a whole, and that we have nobody to blame but David Stern for this. You're marketing the players so much that there's no respect for players or from non-players or former players. You look at all these, and this has been going on for over 40 years in the NBA. All the coaches and you got management staff that's just former player. Sometimes it's good to bring in a different perspective. You know, it's good to bring, who was it, Strauss, Corey? That Jerry Krause or whatever, the general manager, you know he didn't play in the NBA. He's 5 foot and nothing. I wouldn't say 100 and nothing, about 200 something plus, maybe 300 something. You know, a little bitty guy, but he got things done, didn't he? He made the tough, emotionless decisions to help the Bulls win a dynasty. And it wasn't all just through drafting and getting lucky. A lot of it was trading players that Jordan didn't want to be traded, moving off coaches, talking the ownership into hiring other coaches, going out and getting a guy that was considered to be a hippie coaching at Puerto Rico, Phil Jackson, and, you know, bringing him in there, Tex Winter in there, moving off Doug Collins, putting that triangle offense in there. All that was from by a non-player. You know, you got Mike Dunleavy Jr., another former player. His dad was a coach who's been a general manager for 5 minutes, and you're asking him to break up a dynasty. Me, I'll take all the emotion out of it, and I'd go ahead and just make those moves and make the Warriors competitive if you're still thinking about another championship run, if you're just thinking about selling tickets and air quote running it back. Go ahead and keep the old guys back then, you know. But that's the easy decision. That's the that is the passive decision of a general manager. Yeah, and that's true. I mean, they shouldn't expect these gigantic contracts. The Lakers set the Lakers back for years, Chad, when they gave Kobe Bryant that last big contract. Remember what happened when he done that? Remember? Well, he tore his Achilles, you know, and it set him back for years. Now, of course, you do have the luxury tax. You want to pay luxury tax, just pay everybody. Reading something the other day, it could be in the like $500 million with that luxury tax. Okay. You know, I always keep forgetting to do the good scope, bad scope thing, but another where this was a good scope, you know, where I was right about a situation. Over the weekend, Bob Huggins, now former West Virginia coach, has resigned. Got a DUI, charged with the DUI Friday night in Pittsburgh, folks. Pittsburgh police reportedly found him with a shredded tire and addressed him about moving, or asked him to move the car off the road. So I don't know if he hit something or what. There could be more out of the Bob Huggins situation. Huggins registered twice the legal limit in the state of Pennsylvania, charged with the DUI, and has now resigned. Remember when I had my notes on Bob Huggins. This was back in early May from him using the offensive gay remarks back in May the 5th. Listen, off of this interview just last month, this radio interview just last month, listen up. This is from my show back on May 5th, if I can get it to come up. Here we go.
On the air, I'm sitting here with Steve Muller in the segment.
Steve Muller.
What would make you think I wanted to talk to you?
Joking
hey, Coach,
with it.
Now, we're telling Huggins stories, but we had a cut at which you kind of took a little shot at me as not being a trustworthy person. Would you want to revise and extend those remarks?
Absolutely not.
Hey, Hugs, I told him I thought it was misunderstood. Take it out of context. It was out of context.
A long bit.
I don't know. It must have been my thoughts at the time.
Bob Huggins.
Now, Steve also tells me that you have the best portal transfers. Have you poached any Xavier guys to come?
Transfer portals and say that was out of sarcasm because they know he hates this thing. This is something new to college football or basketball. Oh, college football and basketball. 69-year-old coach, third all-time winningest coach. I didn't know that. Had never won a ring though. Never won a ring. But listen to what he says about Xavier.
Any Xavier guys to come to play for West Virginia?
Catholics don't do that.
No, we're above the fracas, aren't we? No problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I tell you what, any school that can throw rubber penises on the floor and then say they didn't do it, my God, they can get away with anything.
Rubber penis. Was this
I think that was at the crosstown shootout, wasn't it?
It was transgender night, wasn't it?
What?
Was that it?
It was a crosstown shootout. Yeah, no, what it was all those fags, those Catholic fags, I think.
All right.
F word, Catholic F word that rhymes with maggot, describing gay people. And I explained this back when I talked about this story back on May 5th, that this is not even cancel culture. When I was living in New York City, trying to make it as an actor and stuff, out of 2 years out of high school, I told you I mentioned that word in front of a casting director. And he says, don't use that word. Don't use the F word that rhymes with maggot. He said, use the term gay. Okay, so that was considered a slur back in 2002. It's 2023, 21 years ago. That was considered that. So he knew what he was doing. You know, he's in the midst of a 4-year deal. He's from Morgantown, West Virginia. He just did not want to resign. He would prefer them fire him so he can, fight them over that remaining, I think what to say is it amount of money left on his contract. I want to say he is in contract up to about 2027, something like that. It's a really good contract, And you look at their early exits, if they're even making the NCAA tournament. And I mentioned this. This is one of those I told you so deals. Back in, like I said, look at all the coaches who have left. Guys like Jay Wright. You look at Krzyzewski at Duke. All right. Boeheim at Syracuse. That's too much of a coincidence. They're tired of dealing with this transfer portal stuff. Wright was still 60 years old. He was right in his prime in basketball years. He just come off multiple championships within a 3-year period or something like that. He was starting to get Roy Williams, throw Roy Williams in there. Huggins is looking at this transfer portal. He's looking at this NIL crap, and he's thinking, man, if I could just get him to fire me. If I can just get him to fire me. And he may be going through some personal stuff. I did read that he did have a DUI. He did have another DUI back in 2004. Okay. And even after all that stuff happened, back in May, an update from that was they reworked his contract and reduced his annual salary to $1 million from $4.5 million, and he was required to do sensitivity training in air quotes, and he didn't like that. I'm sure he didn't like that, and on top of that, he was suspended the first 3 games of this upcoming season. This is after the gay slurs on the station there. He knew what he was doing, And now, of course, he got this DUI. He's like, you know what? I'm done with it anyways. I want to lay low key. I'm done with the public eye. I'm done with this is that. And that's just me. I mean, maybe he comes back and get him a radio show, but this is what I'm reading from outside. Done with the public eye, done with the NIL, done with the transfer portal. Don't want to let the locals down, but if they fire me, they can look at it. But no, not me. I see the way he's seeing it, But I'm sure a guy, 69 years old, I think he started first coaching in 1984 there. So it's kind of an oddball situation. Now, tomorrow, again, John Restano will be on the program. And I'm going to ask him about what I'm about to bring up here in just a second. Stefon Diggs. Boston Globe over the weekend, since the last time I talked to you. Boston reported that Diggs has had issues with the play calling. Said his quote had frustration is with his role in the offense and his voice and play calling per league source close to the Bills locker room. I'm taking this from the Boston Globe story here. Visibly agitated at Allen during that 27-10 playoff loss. The Bengals stormed out of the locker room almost immediately after the game. Didn't attend any volunteer workouts this season. And, of course, the mandatory one, after everybody thought everything was good, he blew that one off too. I've talked about his issues with, obviously, Minnesota back the reason why he even went to the Bills. He's complaining about getting the ball there when they were winning against the Saints in a playoff game. And the game was over with. He's still complaining about not getting the ball. So it's more about him not getting the ball than it was about him winning and losing. This is in Rappaport today on Josh Allen on this Stefon Diggs situation about an hour ago.
Mandatory minicamp mandate. There was still persisting speculation on Stefon Diggs with the Buffalo Bills. What was wrong? What caused him to miss the first day of camp? And how's it going to be fixed? And just to be completely honest, a lot of that speculation about the role of Ken Dorsey, the offensive coordinator, about DeAndre Hopkins and whether or not Diggs adjusted his contract for that, a lot of that's wrong. Actually, I'd say most of that is wrong. Let's focus instead on the words of Josh Allen, the star quarterback for the Bills, who took to the podium and was effusive in praise about Diggs. First of all, Allen said himself, there are things that he can do better. Of course, to get Diggs, one of the best receivers in the NFL, the ball certainly would not hurt. He talked about the way communication should be better, and he said simply, this thing does not work without Diggs. No doubt a renewed emphasis on making sure he is a key part of one of the best offenses in the NFL, paramount as they go forward to the 2023 season. And as far as Diggs goes, the most important thing for him, making sure the Bills as a team are in the best position they possibly can be to win. No doubt if Diggs is prolific in this offense, that helps absolutely everyone. I also have no doubt this will be something that'll be behind us by the time we get ready.
Okay, you can see that Allen's trying to play politician here. He's trying to play the PR role. And I noticed that Davante Adams put out something today. Whatever team I'm going to, I'll make that team better. Hold on. Let me make sure. Let me tell him. John Rashad, I'm sorry. I'll be looking forward to it. I'll send it tomorrow. Yeah, I think he thought I meant today. But anyways, John is from that area. Niagara Falls area, Buffalo area. So I'm gonna ask him about this tomorrow. But my thing is Josh Allen trying to play the PR role, everybody's trying to cover up for Diggs. And there's also more to this. Listen, McDermott wanted to call defensive play. Head coach Sean McDermott wanted to call defensive plays. And I failed to mention this last week that Leslie Frazier, very good 5-year defensive coordinator, stepped down at the end of last season. He's going to step away for a season. He doesn't want to work under McDermott no more. Brian DeBall, remember, he's now the head coach of the New York Giants, and things have been deteriorating ever since. They couldn't get that running game going. Again, I think McDermott is on the hot seat coming into next season, and I also think that they cannot run the football, and they're going to have problems there. They have not done anything, and I'll say this, and I've already talked about this, and I had them at 12-5, winning this division. The last time that I've done a breakdown of the AFC East, I'm going to have to change my mind on that. I'm not going to do game by game right now, but I'll say this. I'll have to give Miami the edge there. I think that if I put it this way, if Diggs is on this roster and if McDermott don't aggressively address this, that this team is not going to win this division. They're going to struggle to make a wild card. I really do think that, even though I like Kincaid, like Gabriel Davis, like Diggs as a player as far as production, but Diggs is going to be Diggs. When things don't go perfectly the way he wants it, he wants out. He wants to cause disruption. I still stand by what I said last week, and now even more. I don't know if, and I think the reason why they didn't fire him McDermott up in Buffalo is because of the Damar Hamlin situation, the snow out games. They felt like, and John's brought this up, that the team was simply emotionally exhausted the time they played Cincinnati. Totally just, and they liked the way he handled, canceled the game, handled the Hamlin situation with the heart attack on the field and everything. But this year, you've got to take all the honeymoon period out and all the motion aside. Hey, listen, we got an all-world quarterback here. We have a much better than average defense. At one time, this team had the best defense and the best offense in the NFL. Just lacked a little bit of running game. The first 4 or 5 games of the season, they looked like world beaters. The first 2 games particularly, dogging out the Rams, dogging out Tennessee. And then the injuries started to pile up. But they got away from fundamentals like running the ball, being too Josh Allen dependent, being too predictable. They kind of look like Mike Tyson when he lost his good trainers. They started dealing with Don King and his guys. Then sloppy, always going for knockout punches. That stuff you start to see and add up here. So right now, from reading from this team is they're not that big time powerhouse. I think Cincinnati's better. Cleveland may be better. Okay. Miami may be better. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have to say Miami's probably better today. Miami's a better team. They open up against the Jets. The Jets may be better if Aaron Rodgers don't have another calf injury. The Jets beat them last year. Remember that in one of the games. So I'm reading the tea leaves. Dermott's a little bit of a control freak, but when it comes to making swift decisions, he's a little lax with the offensive problems. One of them being Stephon Diggs. If this is what we're seeing of Diggs now, what do you think's going on behind the scenes with Stephon Diggs? I say trade that dude to Buffalo or trade him to Dallas so he can play with his brother. Try to get CeeDee Lamb, send him a pick, do anything you can just to get Diggs' contract and get him out of the building forget about what Allen says. He's just playing PR, you know. Allen get the ball to anybody and run a good route, you know. So that is my thing here. Again, folks, I didn't have a show yesterday, all right? And part of this sacrifice was to take a big pay cut from my day job. And what I did last year over several months before I started going 5 days a week on SportsScope, starting after Labor Day, the Tuesday after Labor Day is the first day I started going 5 days a week. This show originally started in 2007, May of 17. So 6 years doing it 1 day a week. Did it on Sundays. Sometimes I would do it on Tuesdays. But you all that's been with me for a while, you know I'm doing it. I was doing it like that. And I wanted to take that next step. But I had to cut off a lot of my hours on my day job, which I feel a lot better because of. But I took a major pay cut. That savings has worn down. That is so I'm going to probably miss some Mondays because I'm going to have to pick up some Saturdays, particularly during the summer. Not as much working once fall starts back again, but you're going to see some replays on Monday. This is part of the sacrifice. You're seeing a guy build a show from the ground up. I mean, I wasn't an ex-player. I wasn't born on third base. First generation college student, shoestring budget. This is what it takes. You know, I don't have a media presence on a major media outlet like a lot of people who get in this business. Joe Rogan. Remember, Joe Rogan was on Fear Factor. You know, he was on TV shows. He hosted Fear Factor. That helped his profile. Pat McAfee was a kicker in the NFL or punter. He has all kinds of players from there in the league that can help him out. And plus, he saved a few bucks from the NFL to do this full time. So I'm starting from behind. I'm the average person. Came a long way. But now I'm going to have to work to make up that difference. You know, on my day job, I'm a contractor. I have to pay full taxes on the money I make. I don't pay 7.5% like you all that are non-contractor. I have to pay 15%. I find out stuff to write off. This is a company. Last 5 years, SportsScope is a sole proprietorship. You know, I write off stuff that I order off TV. This mic, some advertisements, a lot of stuff that I pay for this, magnets, updated equipment, all this stuff. You name it. Everything I use for this show, this is being rolled off here. Sports packages, God knows what I pay for the cable. So if you see the fact, I'm not getting lazy on it. I simply can't afford. I have to. And there's another story too. That porn star is threatening threatening to leak Zion Williamson's sex tapes, and the Portland don't want him. They would prefer to have Brandon Ingram. And this woman was also, I was reading this, suspended for basically blackmail on Twitter. She's suspended from Twitter. So that's a story I can talk about tomorrow. I may talk about that within the first 30 minutes. But back to this. So that's the reason. So you all is kind of with me on this journey. I'm kind of taking you all behind the curtain of what I'm having to do to get SportsScope off the ground. You know, and it's okay. It is what it is, not playing victim, but this is part of the time I have to make that money back up that I saved last year to pay my bills. I have to keep money up for my car because I drive so many miles on the day job. I have to have money put back for major repairs, not if, but when they happen. So that's part of me missing some time on SportsScope, but you will get to see you will get to see a rerun here, and of course maybe I'll get Jeffrey Descovich back on next week. We'll talk about that. But again, tomorrow we're going to have the NBA draft tomorrow or Thursday. Excuse me. Today's still Tuesday. You have the NBA draft Thursday. So I'll bring maybe Jeffrey on next week. Tony Cox and his son, a guy I used to work with me and you, Corey. His son is 6'5" now. His son is 6'5", and he is a quarterback out of the Clarksville, Tennessee area, and named as one of the best in the entire state. I had him on when he was in junior high school, and I may have him on. Jacoby Cox, 6'5", quarterback from Chandler, Tennessee, or from Clarksville area. This is a Prep Red Zone ranking, PrepRedZone.com for 2025. I think he's going to be the class of 2025. Chad said it took me a while to realize it wasn't live because it does say live on the screen when I do a rerun StreamYard. And, Ron from my job here, a guy I work with, he said, man, that was a great show last night. And I was walking over. I didn't even say nothing else to him. I said, hey, man, I appreciate it. I'll make sure and do that next time. So I'm glad you caught that. And again, it won't be every Monday, but sometimes I'm going to be working late Sunday or late Saturday. And I may be up all day Saturday and too exhausted Sunday into Monday. And I'll probably have to take some of these Mondays off and do this particular Monday. I was just exhausted. I've been going hard at this show for a very long time. But so, yeah, I'm going to get more into that Zion thing tomorrow. There could be some more big trades to break out. Lillard could go to Miami. So we will get into all that stuff here. And see how all this stuff works out. I may even talk a little bit about the AFC West too. There's been some talk about them and what Sean Payton is doing with Russell Wilson. It's going to be really hard to pinpoint the wild card teams in the AFC. I got even the winner in the AFC East, I'm not sure about. Like I said, and Tyreek Hill, speaking of AFC, I think Miami's going to win it, but there is a story out today about Miami's Tyreek Hill that he assaulted a police are investigating him allegedly hitting a man at a marina out in Miami area. Hill got into some kind of disagreement with the employee of one of the charter companies based at Holdover Marina on Sunday. The disagreement ended with Hill striking the employee, but the employee doesn't want to press charges, but the police are investigating it anyway. So, it's the offset, and I've said this before about this. Just after the season ends, about February for most teams, except two that's not in the Super Bowl, players get in trouble. They've been good. They've got all that money that's come to them every Tuesday after every game, every Tuesday morning, and they go wild when the season first ends. And then they also have incidents just before training camp begins. It's June. Training camp's at the end of next month. We're starting to get 7, 8, 9 weeks away from training camp. Just before the season, just after the season, that's when if you're a reporter in NFL, that's when you want to read the police blogger. That's when you want to check up on. That's when your DUIs, your assaults, your domestic issue, all that happens just before training camp. Never fails. Hopefully, with the guy saying what he did, maybe this is a story that will fade, and Tyreek Hill will be fine, and the Dolphins will be okay. But that just broke just about 45 minutes before I came on the program, and I'm reading this stuff that I'm not really fond of out of the Buffalo Bills. So, anyways, I will see you all tomorrow, and again, John Restano from Spitball and Sports will be here with me, and he just confirmed it by the email. So, folks, if you like the show, please share the show. Please subscribe to the Spotify. When I say subscribe, it don't cost you money. Helps me build my numbers up. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube, it's only like 30 followers, and I did get a few more last week. Thank you, the YouTube. I said, but subscribe to the or not just Spotify. Anywhere you get your podcast, you can find SportsScope, Apple, you name it. My niece, Brittany, you told me about the one to the Anchor app, which it goes, once I download this Anchor, it goes out to just about every podcast out there. But yeah, make sure and do that. It takes a lot to get this thing. I'm building it from the ground up, and I don't have connections. I'm not a former player, but I need your help if you guys want to see this program strive like I do. Okay? Thank you, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, here on Sports Scope. Put my outro in there.